college football addicts? We are here today breaking down the Ohio State schedule, and I'm giving you the insight on how you should bet your money in our Buckeyes preview, which is presented by BetUS. Ohio State gets off to another quick start with a very easy front half of the schedule. We'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about where it gets a little bit tougher, and then we'll also talk about where you should place your money in your bet if you're betting on the over-under win total for the Buckeyes this year. So let's jump right into it. Akron is your first game, and I just cannot see them providing any kind of a challenge for the Buckeyes. Used to like watching Akron a little bit here and there when one of Coach Bowden's sons used to be there, but I don't really see how they provide any kind of resistance. And then I kind of think the same thing about Western Michigan. Western Michigan, a team that provides some talent and really does get some guys to commit there, just not even close to enough. And then really same thing with Marshall, right? I think this is a pretty easy out-of-conference three games for Ohio State. I think they win these three pretty easily. I mean, I think this could be, guys are out by halftime type situations in all three of these games. And we really won't know a lot about the Buckeyes through the first, most of the first month of the season. That last weekend of September, you do go to Michigan State, certainly a place that you maybe would rather play your first Big Ten game at home. But, man, early in that Michigan State kind of turnaround, I don't really see them being able to put up enough resistance to keep Ohio State at bay. I think Ohio State would have to play pretty poorly to not get the win here. And I like Michigan State to win this one. Or I like Ohio State to win this one at Michigan State, despite them being the home team there. Iowa is an interesting one. Just a week later, now that's back home at Ohio State, but a team that has a really good defense. I just don't know if offensively they're going to have enough to keep up. I know they did some nice things last year. I know that they were a competitive team, but I don't think that they have it. I like Iowa. I like what they're building there. I just don't think they're going to be able to have enough to keep up with Ohio State. Now, it does get a little tougher, and there is a tougher stretch upcoming for the Buckeyes. But before I go on, I'm going to show you a very, very quick 15-second clip from BetUS, and then we'll get right back to it.
Michael Vick at BetUS.com. Catch an incredible 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus 10% gambler's insurance. BetUS, my online sportsbook and casino.
Now, after the Iowa game, they have to go out to Oregon. And if there's one place on the schedule where I feel like they could certainly get tripped up, it is right here. Oregon, one of the most talented teams in the country, and maybe not even as talented as Ohio State, but I do think that they probably have the edge when it comes to quarterback. I also think that traveling out to the West Coast is never easy for teams, and I think for those two reasons, I like Oregon to get the win here. Now, Buckeyes fans, don't tune out on me just yet. I do have some good news coming for you in just a moment. But after the Oregon game, which, again, I think is a loss, could certainly go either way. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a really good game. After that, I think you come home and you get a win against Nebraska. I'm high on Nebraska this year. We spoke with Adam Carricker of the Carricker Chronicles about that team, and I think Nebraska could surprise some people. I think that they could have an outside shot at getting to a 9-3 record, but I don't think that they're quite on the level of Ohio State yet. I think they'd have to. You'd almost need like a Superman type performance from Dylan Raiola, like a Johnny Manziel against Alabama in 2012 type performance, and even then, I don't know if Nebraska quite has enough around him like A&M did, which was a really good team back then. And so, yeah, you'd really need Raiola to be like the second coming to win this one if you're Nebraska up there in Columbus. So I like Ohio State to win there. They continue to pick up a big win. But, Nebraska, a tough physical team, coached very well. I'm not saying that one's going to be super easy, but I think Ohio State edges them out. At Penn State, it'll probably be a whiteout. Almost always is, right? Like night game at Penn State. And I think Penn State will be improved. I think they'll be a little tougher on Ohio State than they were last year, but I also think Ohio State's better this year than they were last year, and I think they'll be more complete. I'm excited about Jeremiah Smith. I'm excited about some of the weapons, downs, and stuff in the secondary. I really think that Penn State 2023, Penn State 2024 might beat Ohio State 2023. I don't think that Penn State 24 can beat Ohio State 2024, if that makes sense. So even though this is on the road, it's a stretch of 3 tough games in a row. I know there's the bye week between Oregon and Nebraska, but even though it's a 3 tough game in a row schedule, I think Penn State just doesn't have enough, and Ohio State gets the win here. And basically, with 4 games left, sets it up to where the winner of Michigan versus Ohio State at the end of the year is probably going to be in your conference championship, as I think Michigan will be playing for a lot that last weekend too. But before we get to that, of course, you've got the Purdue, the Northwestern, the Indiana games. Yeah, I was in West Lafayette. I like Purdue's campus. I like being there. I know the game's in Columbus, but they're a fun team to root for. They're a hard-nosed team to root for. They can get upset here and there. They're not in a place right now where I think they can even be close to Ohio State. I'm the same exact way on Northwestern, and I'm the same way on Indiana. I don't think any of these teams really stand a chance. I've got the Buckeyes going 3-0 in those games and rebounding really nicely from that Oregon game. We'll just go ahead and talk about Michigan. I think they beat Michigan as well. I think that they finished the year 11-1. Listen, Michigan just has to replace way too much this year. I think the game being in Columbus is a big deal. I think that they, as good as Michigan was, Ohio State was driving with a chance to win it last year, and they were this close, and they didn't get it done, right? Like, that's not saying, Michigan shouldn't have won or they shouldn't have done this or that or the other, but I do think that Ohio State is the better roster right now. It's obviously tough to predict what's going to happen on November 30th when you're sitting here in mid to late August, but I do think Michigan is just not necessarily on Ohio State's level this year. I think Ohio State's probably one of the more talented teams in the country. It's them or Georgia to me as the 1 and 2 most talented teams in the country, and you probably put them in any order you want. Maybe you put Georgia just slightly ahead because you have a little more confidence in back at their quarterback position. But yeah, I think Ohio State is that good this year. And it wouldn't shock me at all if they went 12-0. I don't really see there being a game where they could even slip up. I don't think you'd call at Oregon a slip up. If they were to lose to Michigan, maybe that's a slip up. But even at Penn State, if they were to lose that one in a whiteout game or something crazy like Allard, Penn State's better than people think. I think Ohio State is just one of those teams this year, and they really have been, right? Ohio State's been really good, winning 10+ games for a long time. But I think when they take on Michigan this year, I just like Ohio State's weapons more. I like them at the quarterback position a little bit more. Trenches are closer, I think. Michigan's done a really good job recruiting there, and they coach guys up really well there. But, even on defensive line, I like Ohio State a little bit more. I certainly like Ohio State's secondary more. True freshman phenom Jeremiah Smith is probably better than any wide receiver that Michigan has on that side of the ball. So I think Ohio State wins this. Being at home, if it was at the big house, maybe I could see picking Michigan in this one. I don't even know if I'd pick them then, but with it being at Ohio State, I like the Buckeyes. They get to 11-1, and with that, they clinch a spot in the conference championship game against the team that beat them earlier in the year. They play Oregon on a neutral site game, and this time I think there's been enough time going by. I think Oregon and Ohio State rematch in an absolute classic, and I think it's hard to beat a team twice. I'm only giving you the 12 games here, but here's a bonus one. Here's a freebie for you. They're going to be taking on who may be Oregon may be the number 1 team in the country at this point. I think Georgia and Texas and Alabama will all have losses by the time you get there. So this might be like a 1 versus 4 matchup or a 1 versus 5 matchup. And Ohio State, I think, gets revenge in Indy. I think they get revenge in the Big Ten championship. They go 12-1. They're Big Ten champions, and they go to the playoff with a first-round bye because they won the Big Ten. 12-1, we saw, the committee last year, what they did with teams that, won a conference championship. Obviously they're going to get that automatic qualifier, but they probably jump over, with a win against who I think Oregon is going to be number one at that point. They probably jump over the Big 12 champion. They may jump over the ACC champion, depending on who has more losses there. I won't guarantee they jump over the SEC champion, because if that's like a 12-1 Georgia, they're going to be really high up there too. But I think that they jump from outside the top four up to maybe the number 2 team in the country, maybe the number 1 with their win, with their payback win against Oregon. I think Oregon, I mentioned this in the Oregon preview, I think Oregon slots in at the 5 seed, this being their only loss. And I think that's still a really good place for Ducks fans. You get the home playoff game, you get to play the 12 seed, then you get to play the 4 seed, who is probably like the Big 12 champion or something like that. So the 5 seed's not a bad place to be at all. But Ohio State fans will be happy with that first round bye that I think they get. So again, I told you not to kill me for the Oregon prediction of earlier in the year. I think you get your payback on a neutral site game in the Big Ten championship. I know you don't want to lose either one of them, but if you had to lose one and win the other, I think you'd probably take the scenario that I laid out for you today. I know you'll probably hate me and think you're going 13-0, but hard to predict 13-0 at any time. I know we had 3 teams that did it last year. 2 of them made the playoff, 1 didn't. A little bit of salty, sour grapes here still, but hard to predict teams to go 13-0, especially with how the conferences are all better, right? I think every conference is a little bit better this year. I think Florida State, Clemson, Miami, NC State, all really good teams in the ACC. I think the Big 12 is more, I don't think the Big 12 is necessarily better, but I think it's more diverse right now, and you certainly have a lot of teams that could battle for that spot. SEC got better with Texas, Oklahoma. Big 10 got better with Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC. I think it's going to be a fun year, and I got Ohio State going 12-1, top 4 seed, probably 1 or 2 by winning the Big 10 and in the playoff with that first round bye. Let me know what your thoughts are, Buckeyes. We'll certainly do more Ohio State content through the year, but make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. Again, appreciate BetUS for their support. We will talk to you guys soon. Thank you for watching College Football Addiction.